Joining me right now is Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise. He is the House Minority Whip and member of the Energy and Commerce Committee. Great to see you, Congressman. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to be in person with you, Maria.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and thank you for coming in. I find it really odd that we're now talking about having abortion clinics on federal land, and we can't drill on federal lands.
Yeah, it's just nuts. I mean, it shows you how out of touch with the American people the Biden administration is. They're more focused on taxpayer-funded abortions than they are lower costs for oil, for natural gas, for basic energy, and we see it driving up everything else when you're at the grocery store. You're paying for this Biden agenda.
But you've got the president's approval rating down to 36%, and yet he's not pivoting. You have your colleagues right now talking about coming up and introducing another spending package.
Yeah, they can't give it up. I mean, they keep talking about trillions in new taxes. Taxes, imagine that right now with inflation. You'd drive it even higher. Prices would go higher. Spending trillions more in Washington instead of working with us to lower energy costs. And we've got legislation. We've presented it to the administration that would lower gas prices tomorrow. They don't want to talk to us about it because they hate American fossil fuels. They go overboard. You're looking at what Biden's doing now. He's going to go to Saudi Arabia and beg them to produce more oil. And frankly, as Macron pointed out to him, I guess Biden's own advisors don't know this, but Macron had to tell him they don't have the capacity to produce more over there. We have it here in America. And by the way, we produce it cleaner, and it's American jobs, and it would lower the cost. And he won't do it because the radical left controls his agenda.
And instead, we are now a couple of days away from the July 4th holiday, and we are talking about the most expensive July 4th holiday in 40 years. What is the GOP's plans to turn this around?
Our plan, and we're going to be rolling it out later this summer, the Commitment to America. It's going to show the country how we can lower gas prices, how we can get energy prices under control, get inflation under control, how we can secure America's border, Maria. Obviously, you saw what happened, over 50 deaths yesterday, and the White House is telling people that the border is closed. For God's sake, I mean, they have no desire to fix any of these problems. We're going to lay out an agenda that shows the country how we would fix it if they put us in the majority in November.
Well, I mean, the fossil fuel pushback is permeating throughout every agency. You've got everybody from the Securities and Exchange Commission making believe that they're the EPA, trying to really get on portfolio managers, making sure that they're doing ESG investing. So who's running the show? Is this the progressive left? Is this BlackRock? Who is forcing people to have this clean climate change agenda?
Yeah, and this is where the Bernie Sanders, AOC wing of the party, but even Joe Biden, as a candidate for president, said we're going to shut down drilling. We're going to stop drilling in America. He has no problem flying 5,700 miles to Saudi Arabia on Air Force One. Right. Who knows what the carbon footprint of that is, when you could stay right here, Port Fourchon, Louisiana, in my district. They could open up more production in the Gulf of Mexico, but they won't even issue a lease sale. So they're in violation of law there. No new pipelines, no new LNG export facilities. You can't even get a permit to do seismic to know what is beneath the ground in America, because, as you pointed out, even with ESG, they don't want American oil production. That's why the price is high. Families get it. It's not Putin's fault. Putin's not doing this. Joe Biden's doing this.
Meanwhile, I thought it was huge that German officials are saying, let's reverse this spending on green. Let's stop, because we can't afford it right now, and we need actually to open up coal plants. Yeah,
China's building a new coal plant every week as we're shutting down natural gas plants. I mean, this is the lunacy of the left's agenda. It's hurting American production. Nobody has better standards. They love beating up America on the left. Nobody has better standards in the world than the United States of America. If you're going to make stuff, and we're a manufacturing economy, the whole world is, make it in America. It's cleaner, it's better, and let's lower the cost of gasoline.
Well, it seems like the Democrats are not focused on these issues at all. Instead, they're focused on abortion. They're focused on gun control. You fought against the most sweeping gun control legislation in 3 decades that was just signed into law. Tell me what was wrong with that. What's next?
Yeah, and what you look at is anytime there's some kind of tragedy, the first thing they talk about is taking away guns from law-abiding citizens. You can go to the states with the strongest gun control measures on the books. How many deaths were there in Chicago over the weekend? The state of Illinois has some of the toughest gun control measures. New York does. How many deaths do you see? What you see right now is millions of Americans are first-time gun buyers because they see crime in the streets. You just had West Hollywood voted to defund their police. And look at the results. Every community that's defunded the police, crime has skyrocketed. So people rightly so, feel unsafe, so they're buying more guns to protect their family. And what do Democrats want to do? Take away those guns from law-abiding citizens. That's not the answer. Get crime under control, properly fund police, and support the men and women in uniform who are keeping our streets safe. Stop demonizing them.
Yeah, and we're all grateful that the security you had on that softball field a few years ago actually was armed.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't those men and women in uniform with guns who countered the shooter, who, by the way, was from Illinois, bought his gun in Illinois and tried to gun down a bunch of Republicans on a ball field. And God was there that day, and heroes were there that day, too.
So it feels like Democrats are running on nothing but abortion and guns at this point. I mean, they're not doing anything about the economic story. We're waiting on the gross domestic product for the first quarter. This will be the final revision for the GDP. We know that the first two readings were down 1.5% at the last reading. Do you think we're in recession right now?
It feels like we're in a recession today. Whatever the technical measures have to back it up, I think they're going to come later. But in the meantime, people are feeling it today. The consumer confidence is at the lowest point. People are paying. And this is really where it becomes a problem. When you go to the grocery store and it costs you 20, 30% more to buy basic things, eggs, milk, bacon, and you're just not buying some of those things because you can't afford to do it. If you can afford to drive to the grocery store, you can't even find baby formula. This is the United States of America.
Yeah.
It's an embarrassment that Biden's got us to this point, but he's doing absolutely nothing to try to reverse it because the radical left is controlling his agenda.
Even more so, there's no pivot whatsoever, because I know that he's still trying to get more spending through, trying to talk to the senators like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to try to get on board with another reconciliation package.
And $1.5 trillion is not a moderate compromise. They started at $4.5 trillion. They actually passed that through Speaker Pelosi's far left House. The Senate didn't take that up, but $1.5 trillion is still going to be maybe the largest tax increase in our country's history, would lead to even higher inflation, just the depressed state of affairs for consumers. They can't afford things already. Imagine if Washington takes $1.5 trillion more dollars out of their pockets.
Yeah, we're going to wait for the GDP read, but one of our earlier guests said that there are only 23 legislative days left. They don't have much time to do much.
Yeah, the clock's ticking, and they're not trying to work with us, with House Republicans, to fix any of these problems, but we're going to roll out this agenda. We're sure going to show the country how to fix these problems.
Congressman, thanks so much. Great to see
being with
you.
you, Maria.